Welcome everyone. The topic for this video is issues related to developing competencies model. We'll talk about competencies model in depth and probably try to address what are the difficulties, issues which one might encounter while developing one model. So first and foremost thing, how do we design and implement the competency model? First is starting from the scratch, absolutely basics. We are beginning. Depending upon the corporate strategy, management philosophy, we would like to look after what is the end. Is it the value for money? Is it we addressing the niche customers? Is it quality that needs to be not to be compromised upon? What is it that we are targeting depending upon the corporate strategy management philosophy? Customer requirement is the targeted audience that we are focused upon. Competitor strategy as to what our competitors are actually doing around it. Based upon these three parameters, we'll design our competency models for business needs and process. So our dexterity competency is one area. Now what are business needs and process? We are trying to produce the whole gamut of product subparts together all by ourselves, or probably subletting some of our parts, outsourcing some things, some of our jobs. Now, these are the requirement for the business need and process thereby. So, we need to start from the scratch and starting from a validated competency model. That is what we are looking around it. That can be done in basically three steps. The customized model, step one, is all about data gathering. It's all about preparation. You need to identify the jobs. You need to study the job in detail. You need to understand what are the tasks that has been assigned. Identify major categories of skills as and when required. Probable competencies that is mandatory to build upon this. That needs to be understood in terms of data gathering. Now, once you have found out the data, now you have to make sense of the data, and that is what step number two is all about. It the analysis part. Review a list of probable competencies, construct competency definition, assign proficiency level thereby, and how do we go across with it. Stage number three is validation, content validation sessions. This is where you have actually enacted the products. You know what the product is all about. It. You have completed your operations. Now the fact of the matter, or you need to find out whether this thing has been validated. Reinforce proficiency of critical competency, refine competencies, definitions, if required, as on when on basis. So, why do we do about the stage one gathering, the data gathering? We need to identify the study, jobs, identify major categories of skills, and the probable competencies that is required to make it vital, perhaps. Step number one, what are the jobs that we can do around it? Say, let's say accounting, branding, brand management, production management. So these are various functional areas that we need to understand as for the job description are concerned. Who is working at what level of capacity? Who is working at the lower level, middle level, upper level, and depending upon the reporting line location, you will need to understand the responsibilities for themselves towards the job, towards managing the revenue, operating on the budget, and the salary scale thereby. So, once you have decided upon it, you will try to figure out the number of subordinates, peers, position in the hierarchy. What is the overall objective of the job? What is the job impact and contributions to the overall business? What confidential information will they have to access? Detailed list of responsibilities in order of priority and percentage of time spent on each responsibility per se. Who is dependence on them to complete them? And that is what is very important, perhaps. Step number two is to identify and assign weights to the skills. Each job has to have a minimum skill requirement. Without that, the job existence is to be questioned in the first place. So if you don't require any skills, probably the job doesn't exist, and it need not be owned up. It can be simply be outsourced or can be done by the contract employees and so on and so forth. But if the job is existing, so there is a skill requirement, and if there is a skill requirement, you need to perform the job perfectly, and every time there has to be an effective role performance that needs to be there. Technical versus non-technical skill. Technical skills is what we acquire through training. industry specific process. Probably there are some licenses that you need to go around it. If you want to be an advocate, you need to pass on the certain licenses. If you want to be a medical practitioner, you have to pass on certain licenses. If there are niche jobs that require licenses without which you cannot actually man those positions. So example, a technology, safety, legal regulation may be accompanied by certain or some other certification. Now, these are the technical job requirements that I've been talking around it. Let us talk about this non-technical. Non-technical is essentially your presentation skills, probably your personality, your behavioral skills, which are not industry specific. Perhaps might be process specific, perhaps might be individual specific. The honesty, the risk taking capacity, the flexibility, the leadership quality that we need to talk about it. Sources of this identification of the skills can be found in the literature of the mission and the vision of the company, and probably that we can go across with it as long as possible, as much as possible. Industry research journals and publication, vendor information, customer feedback, value added flowchart, process document, training calendars, and union contract is what we can go across as on when on basis, thereby letting you go around. The best predictor of future behavior is exactly nothing but past behavior. You just elongate what has been done in the past, and you can very well understand how you're going to react in the future sense. So, structured interview is somewhere down the corner will help you to mimic or find out the attributes of the potent employee that we are looking into it. Focus on the individual thoughts and feelings, behaviors and outcomes. Data on sample behavior leading to the success in role. Data on sample behavior during the failures and frustration in a role. Now, what are we looking into it? Comparison of the data and the star average performers that we are talking around every now and then. So, this is the future behavior. Now, believe me or not, we are talking about competencies, and competencies is if I have been successfully operating, standing, and managing the show for a considerable period of time, that means my good work is going to be reflected in my future performance also. Step three is now is the time to identify the probable competencies that we are looking around it. Now, skills that applied behaviorally becomes a competencies. Between 8 to 12 competencies are required for a job performance which is done optimally, effectively, emphatically, as the case might be. So that is what we will be looking forward to it. Stage number two is data analysis, making a sense of it. Make a review of list of probable competencies, construct competency definition thereby, and assign proficiency level. Is it the beginner level? Is it intermediate level? Is it advanced level? Is it superior level? Are you at the expert level, as the case might be? So review that probable job competencies, construct the competency definition then and there. Now, what are we looking into as far as the reviewing of the list of competencies? The internal consistency, the validations, the exhaustiveness, whether you have been working in and out time and again as on when required, as the case might be. Construct competencies definition, simple, brief, and meaningful. State behavioral expectations for an employee as on when on basis. How do we go across as the time passes by? Let us try to define competency in the first place. Let's look at the strategic mindset. When we are talking about conceptual and probably analytical thinking, now these are very abstract voices that goes around it. So how do we define around it? We need to diagnose, collect, analyze information, looks for links and develop new construct, intellectually managing complexity and ambiguity as the case might be. The moment it happens, you should be talking about the systematic thinking. Now, there is a time where you have to show interest in perspective of others, can combine and contrast different disciplines, understand own part, sees the whole picture as the show goes on, and that is what we are looking forward. Environmental scanning and trend analysis. Read the environment, look ahead, predict, forecast, prepare, plan, recognize, and acts on in advance, as the case might be, the obstacles you are looking out here. So read the environment. This is what we should be looking forward to. The strategic mindset is what we are trying to do around. Next is the behavioral example. Now, let's say we like to develop people, enhance the skill sets of the employees. Descriptions of the behavior are stretches, empowers and trains people, provide rewards, feedback, and recognition. demonstrate and stimulate passion and commitment as the case might be, communicate effectively with people as on when as is required from every now and then, if I may say so. So this is where the behavior we are talking about it. So we need to train the people, we need to provide incentive, we need to provide feedback, we need to address their concerns. Remember to communicate effectively and respectfully with the person. The values and ethics, if we want to set around it, we should ensure that the individual values and ethics are in alignment with the company values. Rewards the right behavior, ensure the laws are obeyed and safety, environmental protections are practiced, sets and achieve ambitious goals, strives for a continuous improvement, performances and measure the right things time and again. And this is what we should be looking forward to as we keep on saying what is to be done and how it goes around here. So, defining competencies with examples, let's say both positive and negative. Now, in teamwork, we need to build effective camaraderie among the co-workers. There should be a working relations with others, other people, cooperates with colleagues, understand their goal, is sensitive to their need. Now, what are the positive behaviors? Positive behaviors encourage others to contribute and give ideas, build on others' contribution, give priority to team goals, celebrate the success of the team as the case might be. In contrast, if you want to go and build up on the negative behavior, refers to walk alone, promotes own ideas over others, criticizes others' contribution, gives priority to meeting own needs, and does not, I repeat, does not consider the impact that happens on the other people. This is what we should be going around it, and how do we proceed with it? So, elaboration of competence independence, what do we go around it? Let's say frequently needs help, if the person is below par, but execute tasks independently, often decides upon the work and divides it effectively. We can characterize he is somewhat independent, a category B level worker. And then there is independence who executes without any supervisions, absolutely nothing, manages the show. He's a good person, he's an effective person, he's an effective, competent person, as we call it, going around it. And then there is the last one who is absolutely working independently, takes decisions, efficiently utilizes resources, maneuver opportunities, capitalize upon them, come what may. And this is where you have a very competent employee asset. So you need to understand the elaboration of competence independence with this particular basis. Let me give you the proficiency level. And absolutely no basis, absolutely they just have the know-how, probably they are aware of the things, so there are no basis you can mark them. And exposed has some knowledge but has no experiences as for handling things, probably know, does the thing, knows the basics around it, but nothing nothing beyond it. So the first person is the a person who has an awareness but doesn't know the thing. Second person not only has the awareness, knows the thing, but has not enacted upon it, does not experienced about it. Development person competencies would be having certain practical experiences and can apply with somebody's supervisions, does not have the confidence to run the show all by himself or herself. Proficient, on the other, has is a person who has proficient knowledge, substantial knowledge, and without supervision can do the daily show chores without any hindrances. Daily activities, daily routines, daily job can run the show without any any problem. But then there is something called mastery, who does not have only extensive knowledge but can apply it in a complex situation. On the front, can supervise others also in situation where the situation is dynamic, changing, ever changing. He or she can not only execute the thing, can supervise and can provide guidance to this his or her team member. And then we have the expert level, which is recognized as the leaders whose contribution to the intense knowledge in that particular domain is noteworthy. And that is what an expert level would all be all about it. Stage 3 is all about validation. Validation is content validation, reinforce proficiency of critical competencies as the case might be. Refine competencies, define definitions if required, as on when on basis. Content validation, focus group meeting, top management, cross sections of management, and typical role profile holders is what content validation is all about it. Please ensure that there is a proper and clarified understanding among the team member. The content validation, evaluate the data adequacy, find the things that are in top notch, check time, process involved to implement through the firms, benchmark with other comparable organizations, ensure competencies are suited to local markets and probably local culture. Step number two is to reinforce proficiency level. Conduct proficiency analysis. High proficiency levels are not necessary in each of the competency, but there has to be understanding about what level of proficiency that they have it. Maybe high level is not necessary, but adequate level of proficiency is competency. For the personal competencies framework in 1986, job competency framework was used as a questionnaire in job analysis process to identify the competencies for senior middle managers in large companies. It consists of 45 competencies and under six main headings, if I may say so. Now, I'm listing you all the 45. If you go through it, the six headings are intellectual, personal, communication, interpersonal, leadership, and result oriented. Basically, and if you look into it, only about communication things are very, very clear as LSRT or listening, speaking. R is for reading, W is for written. Now, your speaking is all about your expression and presentation. Then we have the interpersonal is all about relations, impacting persuasive as on when on basis. If we go around as long as possible as the case might be. Impactful, persuasive, sensitive, flexible, ascendancy, and negotiations. Then comes the leadership model, is all about organizing, empowering, appraising, and motivating others, developing others, leading, and so on and so forth. What are we looking at out here? We are looking for result orientation, all about your risk taking, all about your decisiveness, all about your business sense, energy, excellence, concern, tenacity, and initiative. Client focus is the concern, main concern for the day. Now, performance rating skills, why do we go it? On the scale of 6, 0 to 5, if you look at it, 0 is unable to compete in the first place, and that is what we are looking forward to out here. Performance of the competencies fails is number one. You competency fails to meet acceptable standard. Number two is competency is not up to the acceptable standard, probably to a certain degree, but not up to it. But quite acceptable performance is just an okay standard. It meets the standards altogether. Very good performances is rated as 4, is better than the acceptable standard. And outstanding for performance rated as 5 is far exceeding the acceptable standard, far exceeding on a regular basis. And that is what we are looking for it. Now, again, what is on the scale of 5, which is the important scale if you look into is the behavior which is the poorest of all is rated as scale number 1. This is what we are going around it. The behavior is not at all pertinent towards the job performances. On the rated scale as 2, the behavior is mostly marginal, only just about relevance for the successful overall job performance. 3 is just about adequate for job performance, successful, the behavior is there. But where 4 is the behavior is important, absolutely important for the successful overall job performances. And the fifth one is of vital importance for the job performances, as the case might be. Competency based HR application is all about position requirement, which is nothing but about knowledge, skills, and attributes. Every doubts about knowledge, skills, and attributes should be absolutely clear with everybody. That's what is competency based HR application all about. Recruitment is to be who is to be interviewed, as in with the basic qualification, basic personal characteristic should be evaluated on the skills and the knowledge, the experiences that the gentleman or the lady has gone through. Ensure increased productivity and job satisfaction. The third one would be orientation and induction, developing core competencies as the case might be. This is where you are forward looking, future oriented, and has a habit of picking the tricks of the trade. Next would be training, helping identifying easily trainable competency, the quality and the quantity of training required. Performance management is ensuring objective appraisals, employee development and promotions every now and then. With this, you need to understand the issues that I wanted to highlight. It's the highlight of the management and employee buying. wherein everybody is agreed to build upon that competency model so that becomes much more effective and emphatic in the job operations of the company. Remember, competency model has to be continuous. It cannot be fixated. It has to be dynamic and has to be improvised with every passage of the time and days. Competencies to reflect current and should be future oriented. Future activities, time frame and target groups should be structured for each and every jobs. With this, I come to an end of today's presentation. Thank you for watching this video till the very end.